My father was strongly opposed to it. He said, कुछ भी कर ले वकालत नहीं कर सकता.
क्यों?
He came from a rural setup. In those days, law was not considered to be possibly not even the third option.
Yeah.
I don't think the family was exposed to Delhi or constitutional courts. It took a lot of convincing. So when we were in our 5th year, most batchmates were sitting for day zero, firm interviews, and I think 5-6 of us were having good time in hostel. I did not want to sit in an interview. So I told Devashish, यार कहीं कुछ तो करा, किसी सीनियर एडवोकेट के पास भेज, सुप्रीम कोर्ट भेज, and his father was sitting Supreme Court judge at that time. So I told him कि किसी अच्छे सीनियर के पास करवा दीजिए. तो uncle said, सीनियर विनियर छोड़िए, आप पहले ट्रायल कोर्ट में प्रैक्टिस करिए कुछ दिन. And I've seen one thing that has worked, especially for me, जिस मैटर में पैसे मिलते हैं उसमें रिलीफ नहीं मिलता और जिसमें रिलीफ मिलता है उसमें पैसे नहीं मिलते. One angry coaching center owner filed a police complaint in Jharkhand against me. सेइंग कि ये वकील साहब को हमने एंगेज किया था और हमारा रेटी फाइल नहीं हुआ.
Believe it, amazing.
So I was called to the local police station and he said, वकील साहब, वकील हो भी आप भी इनकी तरह ही हो. So I had to show him my I card, my college degree. He said, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी तो सुना है, ये नेशनल लॉ यूनिवर्सिटी, ये द्वारका वारका में कौन से कॉलेज चला रहे हो आप? So we filed the appeal. We did not know that we have to file an application for suspension of sentence. So we called up his son and he was already furious. My father is in jail. My father is an ex-MLA. He should be out in no time. We asked him, can you please get us the medical documents from Tihar jail? He said, भाई साहब मैंने आपको वकील रखा है, अब ये काम आपका है. आप जाइए, ढूंढिए, लाइए और फाइल करिए और पापा को बाहर निकालिए. Those were difficult pressures, but eventually he stuck around.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Law Vaarta's Litigation Talks series. Today we have Dhruv Gautam, who is almost 11 years into practice, and today we learn from him, his journey, challenges, and how he made it so far. Hi Dhruv, and thank you so much for joining us today. Dhruv, शुरू करने के लिए आपने पढ़ाई कहाँ की और law में कैसे आए?
I started my education at DPS Faridabad. And in class 8th, I joined Rashtriya Military College at Dehradun because I was more inclined to join the armed forces. Since my brother had completed his graduation from BITS Pilani and he was also looking to join service, and therefore my parents asked me to come back. And I came back to Faridabad, resumed my education at DPS. And after class 12th, I got through NLU Jodhpur. I did 1 year at NLU Jodhpur and thereafter rewrote the entrance exam and came to National University Delhi.
और आपने armed forces से law में switch कैसे हुआ?
Armed forces से law में switch happened because a senior IAS officer who was the president of our skating association. I went to meet him one day. I was doing my camp at Chandigarh for Asian Championship and he asked me, क्या करेगा लाइफ में? तो आई टोल्ड हिम, सर घर में सब इंजीनियर हैं, इंजीनियर बनेंगे. तो सर छोड़ यार, तू एनलेस बैंगलोर के बारे में पता कर. वो वहाँ से जो लोग पढ़ के आते हैं दे आर डूइंग वेरी वेल इन लाइफ. वहाँ से तू फॉर्म में जा सकता है, विदेश जा सकता है, तेरे पास 10 चीज़ और करने के लिए होंगी, तो ये बोरिंग इंजीनियरिंग का काम छोड़ दे. आई केम बैक होम, टोल्ड माई मदर अबाउट इट. शी डिड सम ग्राउंड रिसर्च एंड when I came back from RAMC Dehradun, thereafter in class 10th, maybe early 11th, she said that you should think about law as a career option. My father was strongly opposed to it. He said, कुछ भी कर ले वकालत नहीं कर सकता.
क्यों?
He came from a rural setup from district Muzaffarnagar. He was the first engineer in his family. And he went to Thapar College in 1971. In those days, law was not considered to be possibly not even the third option.
Yeah.
It was meant for those possibly who couldn't do anything else, at least at the district level. And I don't think the family was exposed to Delhi or constitutional courts at all. So it took a lot of convincing, and I think the elder brother also, because he owed me a favor because since I came back from Dehradun and he joined service, he's a naval officer. So he tried to convince my father and he still did not agree. Finally, when I got through NLU Jodhpur, he asked around and he was not very happy, but then he accompanied me to drop me to NLU Jodhpur.
That's sweet. And एक साल NLU जोधपुर के बाद NLU Delhi switch क्यों?
The switch was primarily for two reasons. The first was I was into roller skating and I was representing the country at international level. So from Jodhpur, it was becoming difficult. I had participated in the World Championship at South Africa in 2008. So I had to leave my college for 2 months. So effectively, half the semester was gone. And I think parents were feeling bored. One child was away. So they said we should have 1 year close to us.
How does it then translate, like your dream of going into the armed forces? और आपको लगता है कि that was a journey you could have taken, या आपको लगता है नहीं अब छूट गया अब ठीक है?
With passage of time, I realized that I am at a better place compared to my batchmates there. They are happy there. When I speak to them, I am in touch with them now. And I have done matters for them. I have done matters for ex-students of RIMC. Being a regular at Armed Forces Tribunal, also had a chance to represent a former Vice Admiral. He was sitting that time. And did his matter in AFT, took it up to Supreme Court, got a reported judgment against me. But yes, I think the choice was good, not mine, more influenced by parents. But it has turned out to be good.
That's fantastic. And आपने college के बाद कैसे proceed किया?
College so when we were in our 5th year, most batchmates were sitting for day 0 in firm interviews, and I think 5-6 of us were having good time in hostel.
How was college's record at that time? Was second year ही था?
We were the second batch.
Correct.
The first batch was, our batch did better than the first batch, and it was expected because with the first batch there were issues like not many people knew about our college. It took time for firms to also recognize that an institution in Delhi has come up and the first batch is out. So I did not want to sit in an interview. So I told Devashish, यार कहीं कुछ तो करा, किसी सीनियर एडवोकेट के पास भेज, सुप्रीम कोर्ट भेज. So he said, and his father was sitting Supreme Court judge at that time. I also went to, I was regular with him, meeting him almost on every Sunday. When we used to go back from college, I used to go in his car and from his house take a walk to the metro station and go home. So I told him कि किसी अच्छे सीनियर के पास करवा दीजिए. तो अंकल said, सीनियर विनियर छोड़िए, आप पहले ट्रायल कोर्ट में प्रैक्टिस करिए कुछ दिन. And then I told देवशीष, यार कहीं ऐसी जगह करा जहाँ कुछ सीखने को मिल जाए, घर के पास हो. Because that was the main reason why parents wanted me back. I didn't want to be out of Faridabad.
Oh.
He knew the partner at Siemens and Attorneys at Law. It's a boutique IPR firm doing very well these days. And I told him, यार इंटरव्यू नहीं चाहिए प्लीज, बस जाऊं और वो रख लें. पैसा इज अ नॉन इशू, कम भी देंगे चलेगा. And Shweta Duggal, a batch senior to us,
yes,
she was already there in that firm. So that made things better. They were happy with her. So they had good image about our college. So they were more than welcoming. And 5 days after finishing college, I joined office. In hindsight, I should have waited till 1st of July.
Why?
The bosses were away. I was just sitting from 10 to 7. Courts were off. And my companion was the office clerk. And I learned things like putting documents in a photocopy machine, tagging documents. And he used to give me stories कि सर आप तो गए, अब तो रात तक बैठना पड़ेगा आपको.
बैठना पड़ा?
Initially not that much. They were kind enough to give relaxed hours. I want, if office hours was 10 to 7, I wanted to leave at 7. Because I went with that mindset कि 7 बज गए, अब सरकारी दफ्तर की तरह बंद हो गया, चलेंगे घर.
ऑफिस कहाँ था?
Office was in Faridabad, Sector 35, very close to Delhi-Faridabad border. And eventually they shifted to, I think, Gulmohar Park. Firm shifted. I worked there for close to 2 years and 4 months before I started independent practice.
And this 2 years and 4 months was primarily what kind of IP work? Was it prosecution or?
It was a mix of both, but I was more involved with IP litigation, mostly trademarks, copyrights, and one important patent matter which stands out at one case where huge damages were awarded by the Delhi High Court.
I see.
This was a patent related to telecom antennas.
And so most of your work was therefore in the Delhi High Court and maybe
Delhi High Court original side.
उसके बाद जो फर्म आपने जब छोड़ी 2 साल 4 महीने के बाद किस तरह का काम आप करते रहे और आज क्या कर रहे हैं?
So the first matter which accelerated my exit from the firm was Devashish had got a criminal appeal against conviction, and we were to represent an ex-MLA and that case was somehow related to Harshad Mehta's scam.
All right.
So we filed the appeal. We did not know that we have to file an application for suspension of sentence. So we filed the appeal and we engaged a freelancer clerk at that time. We didn't have an office clerk, full-time office clerk. He told me, sir, suspension of sentence to डालो आपका बंदा अंदर रह जाएगा. So then...
Sorry for the audience. What is suspension of sentence?
Suspension of sentence is post-conviction, if the accused is in jail, then during the pendency of the appeal, since the appeals take a lot of time to get decided, the appellate court in its discretion may decide to release you on the bail during pendency of the appeal.
So it is different from usual bail, जो under trial को bail मिलती है, उससे अलग सिर्फ इसलिए है क्योंकि convict हो चुके हो.
Yes. So that presumption of innocence is gone and you have been convicted once. So that the threshold for suspension of sentence is slightly higher compared to the regular bail. And suspension of sentence, when we thought of on what ground should we seek suspension, then we realized we did not have the medical documents of the convict.
Right.
So we called up his son and he was already furious that my father is in jail. Is this the kind of service that you provide? And my father is an ex-MLA. He should be out in no time. So we asked him, can you please get us the medical documents from Tihar jail? तो said, भाई साहब मैंने आपको वकील रखा है, अब ये काम आपका है, आप जाइए ढूंढिए लाइए और फाइल करिए और पापा को बाहर निकालिए. So then the best case that we could set out was that he has diabetes, because otherwise he had no medical condition. So sometimes being healthy and fit is prejudicial to your legal interest. And thankfully we got suspension of sentence, but it took 4 hearings and 3-4 months for the sentence to be suspended.
And उसमें client कितना fidgety हुआ?
There were days when I think twice the matter didn't reach, and the son was accompanied by a battery of lawyers from Panipat, from where he was the MLA in his days. So they would come up and say, भाई साहब आप हमको बताते, ये पता नहीं आपने क्या 2 नए लड़के कर लिए और हम आपको बिल्कुल पहली पेशी में बाहर निकाल के देते. So those were difficult pressures, but eventually he stuck around.
Did that client stick around?
Yes, he passed away. His appeal is still pending, and we are yet to contact the son as to what he wants to do, because even post his death, the son is entitled to proceed with the appeal.
And criminal law के अलावा, so that is one area you're doing now. उसके बाद आपने और कौन
So
से
the second matter which I got was distance education coaching fraud, which has been around in the country for a while, and the UGC has been trying to curb these coaching centers, these distant education centers. So UGC came up with a policy that you cannot have a distant education learning center outside the state in which the university is established. And I was approached by my elder brother's friend who had distant education learning center for a university in Tamil Nadu. And they made good money out of it. And when I found out how actually it operates, I could see reason why UGC had to do this, because they were basically handing out degrees just by taking money. There was no education being imparted to anybody. We went to Madurai. He collected money from various other coaching centers, and that money came to my account. The writ was filed. I think 3 or 4 were left out, because they paid him later after we filed the writ. We did not get stay on the first date. So one of the persons who had paid money, I did not know who had deposited,
Correct.
because I was just told कि इतना पैसा account में आ जाएगा. And then he said कि मेरा expense and all of this is part of this. One angry coaching center owner filed a police complaint in Jharkhand against me,
Oh,
saying कि ये वकील साहब को हमने engage किया था और हमारा रिटी फाइल नहीं हुआ है.
believe it. Amazing.
So I was called to the local police station, and he said, वकील साहब, वकील हो भी आप भी इनकी तरह ही हो. So I had to show him my I card, my college degree, and he said, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी तो सुना है, ये नेशनल लॉ यूनिवर्सिटी, ये द्वारका वारका में कौन से कॉलेज चला रहे हो आप? दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी की डिग्री है तो दिखाओ. दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी सुना है, MDU सुना है, पंजाब यूनिवर्सिटी सुना है, ये NLU क्या है ये हमें नहीं पता. He was a assistant sub inspector. So then he made me sit for 5.5 hours. Finally, after some time, he asked me, तेरे पापा क्या करते? I told him my father is a retired government officer. Then his heart melted and he told me कि अपना statement लिख के दो. I gave him a statement saying that this is the person, I've known him, and it is because of his reference that this money came into my account. This is the copy of the writ petition that was filed. This is the order and the writ is pending. So then he asked me, जिसने शिकायत करी है इसका नाम है? I said no. So then he said केस तो बनता है. So then I told him, sir देखो, अब इसने पैसे, मैं इसके पैसे लौटा सकता हूँ. That is the best that I can do. So then he looked at me and he said, सर आपकी कंप्लेंट इस आदमी ने 5 जगह करी है. चीफ जस्टिस को करी है, प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफिस में करी है, चीफ मिनिस्टर ऑफिस में करी है, DGP के पास करी है, और उन सब से मार्क होके मेरे पास आई आइडेंटिकल कंप्लेंट. तो कुछ ठीक सा जवाब बना के दो. तो देन ही टोल्ड मी कि आप अपने सारे पेपर लेके आओ. आपने रिट ड्राफ्ट करी, आप फ्लाइट से मदुरई गए, आपने लोकल काउंसिल इंगेज किया, आप मैटर में अपीयर हुए, बिकॉज ऑर्डर शीट डिड नॉट हैव माय नेम. It only had the name of the local council.
Oh.
So things became a bit difficult there. Then finally I had to write a mail to the local council. He wrote back a mail saying that he has appeared with me, and I did not have copy of the wakalatnama which had my name and signature.
Oh.
So then he sent that to me, scanned it and sent it to me. This is December 2016. And finally the complaint was, I think, closed, because I didn't hear anything after that.
What an experience. This is just... And then how did your relationship with that client or the local council be after that?
I didn't get any matters for Madurai bench of Madras High Court thereafter. So I told him the entire thing. That, sir, this has happened. There is a complaint that I am facing. So he said, sir, इस यूनिवर्सिटी के साथ ही चलता रहता है. ये कोचिंग सेंटर्स बांटते हैं सबको.
पहले बता देना चाहिए था उसको ये.
And since he was doing regular matters for students and coaching centers against that university, he was well aware of all this. So he said, ये हर साल यहाँ पे हर academic session में ऐसे writs file होते हैं, and courts keep granting stay, and finally there was some judgment of Supreme Court, I think in 2016, because of which we did not get a stay on the first year.
Oh.
Because the problem would arise when the student would get admitted in the month of August, July or August, and they were barred from writing their examinations in November, December, the first semester exam. So they have to register every year. So you practically get a stay, graduate to the second year, get a stay, graduate to the third year, and finally you graduate on the basis of stay. And I think those writs are still pending.
What a crazy scene. And so this is one category of matters you said. This is so...
This education matter was one of which I did there. Thereafter, I did not do any education institute related matters. So 3 months I was without work. And after that, I got one trademark matter in Faridabad.
Through your old firm, or this is...
No, through my father. And there's this school... the mark was Aravali International School, and the defendant whom I was representing was running a school with the same name in Rewari, and they did not know that there is a registered name, there is something called trademark, copyright. They filed a suit for copyright, citing a trademark certificate. They did not anywhere allege trademark infringement. They said this is a copyright infringement, and they had annexed a document which was the trademark registration certificate. I filed an application for rejection of plaint. It came up before the additional district judge. I just told him, sir, Aravali International School is a common name. How can you have a trademark over it? He looks at the plaintiff and says, ऐसे थोड़ी होता है. कल को हल्दीराम समोसे पे कॉपीराइट ले लेगा तो क्या हम समोसा खाना बंद कर देंगे? And he dismissed this, rejected the plaint. They filed a review. They waited for that judge to get transferred out. Came up before a different judge. The review got allowed, and the suit was restored. And towards the end, when the matter was being finally argued, I inspected the file, and I found that the suit was filed in the name of the school. Whereas the person who appeared as a witness and who signed the plaint was authorized by the society which was running the school. So this became a point of dispute, only point of dispute left, because they had registered trademark certificate and they had a registered copyright.
Correct.
That whether a school is a legal entity to institute a suit in its own name. My argument didn't find favor with the trial court. In first appeal, I got stay on the first date. That we were injuncted from using the name, and we were given 2 weeks time to paint the buses and remove the literature, the board, and all the advertising material. So we put together an appeal, filed it in Chandigarh High Court, got a stay on the first date. Then I also filed a petition, rectification petition in the IPAB, which got disbanded in 2020, and the matter got shifted to Delhi High Court, asking for removal of this trademark because it is registered in the name of a non-existing entity, and it should have been registered in the name of a society which was running the school.
Right.
So that matter is now up for hearing, final hearing on 21st of March.
Superb. But all of this is quite different from what you're doing today.
Yes. So for maybe one more year, I didn't have much work.
So we are talking
2017. 17. Most of 17, I had only had, I think, 4 or 5 matters. So to kill time or pass time, I decided to resume my sports for one more year and got back to my fitness and played World Championship in China in 2017, September. When I came back from that tournament, my parents were up in arms that I should get married. And I did not have any office. And my batchmate from college, Devashish Chauhan, he was very kind enough to let me work from his office. And we had one small cabin in an office run by his friend's brother. It was a small cabin which could only accommodate 2 chairs. He would use one, I would use one. That is how we were working. So in 4 months' time, I got married. Post-marriage, I don't know, lady luck or you grow with time or matters take time to come. But practice picked up from mid-2018. And there's one interesting incident which I wish to share with the viewers. So after getting married, we had another batchmate, Devanshu Sajlan, who's currently serving in judicial services in Delhi. So Aircel was undergoing insolvency. And I had decided that me and my wife will go to Europe, but we did not have money and we did not want to ask my parents for it. So one day he randomly called and he said, यार Aircel के insolvency matters में claim form file करना है और अच्छे पैसे मिलेंगे but 2 रात काम करना पड़ेगा, मेरे पास ऑफिस नहीं है. He was working in a tier 1 law firm that time. So he finished his office, came to my office, and we got an intern, part-time intern for 4 days to help us. We filled, I think, 45 claim forms, and they were to be submitted to the IRP who was stationed in Cyber City, Gurgaon. And each each person was supposed to pay us 10,000 rupees. So we made 4,50,000 over 2 nights. And we split it half and half. That money was utilized in going to Europe. And the last day panic was that the deadline for filing the claim forms was 8 p.m. 7 p.m. or 8 p.m.
Yes.
And the person who we had requested to hand over the claim forms, he got late. So these 45 people called up separately. They were angry. अगर हमारा claim form reject हो गया तो क्या होगा? And these were people who used to do recharges, who used to supply recharge coupons, prepaid recharge coupons, 100 rupees, 50 rupees, sometimes out of pawn shops, sometimes out of photocopy shops. So they were anxious whether we'll get our money or not if our claim form. And the company owed them 2 lakhs each, 3 lakhs each, 4 lakhs each. Some odd cases, maybe 5-6 lakhs each. Eventually, everybody got their money back. Much later though, the process went. I think Aircel was taken over by somebody and
They paid everybody.
they paid everybody the full amount without interest.
Very rare for it to happen.
Very rare for it to happen.
But that's very nice. And this was along with Devanshu.
Along with Devanshu. Yes.
Sweet. How do you see yourself having gotten your clients? As in, if you look back these past 10-11 years, is it mostly through family, mostly through neighborhood, mostly through your previous office or other friends?
No, for me, it has been the first references have been only through the family, mostly my father. And in the initial matters, people are skeptic, so he would assure them that you don't have to pay anything. आपका बच्चा है, कर देगा. So I did 138 matters.
It's amazing that he was the one dissuading you.
Yes. And he would, so just to encourage, and in 2014 when I was joining my first office, he got a brand new car, Swift. And he said, basic model है, जो कुछ मन करे अपने आप पैसे कमाना और लगवा लेना. इसके पैसे तुमको नहीं देने, ये मेरी तरफ से. And 3 pairs of white shirts and black trousers and 1 coat. What he gave. From my the office that I worked in, I didn't get any work. From neighborhood, it was all without fee work. But the good part with such matters is that it gives you bandwidth to experiment.
Right.
Which is difficult if you are doing paid matters, high-end clients. You don't have the bandwidth to experiment, to decide and try new things. In the trademark, the IP matter which I discussed, I decided that I will not lead defense evidence. So there was no defendant evidence done because I wasn't sure what my guy will say when he steps into the witness box.
Yeah.
So the trial judge asked me at the stage of final hearing, "आपका evidence कहाँ है?" I said, "I didn't lead any evidence." So he said, "आपका WS proof नहीं हुआ." So it took me good 15 minutes to make him understand that I don't have to prove a pleading. The WS, if it is signed by the authorized representative and there is no dispute with respect to that, then I don't have to read evidence. The pleadings have to be read. You can't compel me to lead evidence if I am not too sure how my witness is going to perform. So since they were not paying, they paid after we got the stay from the High Court. But at the entire duration of trial, I remained unpaid. And my father used to give me bits and pieces here and there. कि वो रिवाड़ी वाले केस के चलते 10,000 रख ले.
And out of all these cases that you've done over the years, what percentage were these matters without fee?
I think when I hear most judges addressing college students, all of them say pro bono work karo, this is your service to the society. I think it happens by default. Nobody pays you. So good 30, 40, 50, maybe even 50, 60% of your practice becomes pro bono in the initial years. Once you have done, you have got relief, you have done well for the first set of references which you get from your parents, your extended family, your friends, or whichever source. Once those references get further clients, it is those clients who pay because they don't have a personal connect.
Right.
They engage you purely in a professional capacity. which is when you start earning. So also one has to be prepared to ensure that there is a cycle. So for example, if you have 10 clients, 2 will not pay at all. 2 are going to pay, but they will ensure that you are begging them to pay. Then 2 are going to pay with slight delay. And there are 2 who are going to pay more than what you had expected and also pay you on time. It is those 2 who are going to run your house and office. And the rest you'll have to manage as your savings for as contingency and to expand your practice.
Today, what does your office look like? How many people do you have?
I still share my office with Devashish, who has been generous enough to entertain me in his office. And
is it the same office?
No, he bought a new place in Defence Colony A Block, and we are working from there. And he has 5 juniors, I have 2, and both of us.
And is it the same practice, or you just share an office?
No, we just share office. And some matters where he wants me to appear or brief the senior counsel, I do that.
Right. And do you also take interns?
Yes, I had one intern from college, which gave a very good feeling, Pranav Jain. And he was from Faridabad, which is one reason why he came to intern with me. Because from Faridabad, you're already in a hostel in Delhi. So at least in your vacation time, you don't want to travel every day.
And when you take interns, so part of my questions are also, आप जब किसी junior को या intern को देखते हो, what are the qualities that you think you generally correct them on, or you generally like them to inculcate? जो एक general advice type to law students, I know बहुत broad brush advice नहीं, but just
I think if you can draft things in simple English, precise, to the point, and again keeping the language simple, I think those are the best qualities that at least I look forward to. And in case it is not there, because we don't expect things from a college student who has not done drafting at least till when they are in their 5th year, when they get their drafting papers. So they are still meandering along. And good research skills is, I think, people have to graduate from Google search and Indian Kanun to better shape their research skills, because I think that is the make or break in practice.
Right.
I faced instances where the opposite side has cited judgments past 3 days prior to the date of hearing. That took me down.
Right.
So, and I think platforms like Live Law and Bar and Bench, and they have really upped the game and helped lawyers and possibly even law students remain up to date with what is happening in courts. Because otherwise, I've only done one internship in my college time, and I did it in district court at Faridabad. So they followed the traditional method of research, which is you go to the bookshelf, you take out the SCC or RCR or whichever thing you want to do, look at the index, and you keep flipping pages till you find what you're looking for. So that is a very time intensive method. Half the times you don't find what you're looking for. So from there to the fancy softwares that we are using, I think we've come a very long way. And the ESCR is a great help, because these softwares are fairly expensive, at least for starters.
Right.
It takes a while before you can afford a 25,000 or 30,000 annual subscription, because you have already too much on your plate to cater to.
While starting off your independent practice, आपको first investment, major investment, क्या करनी पड़ी? Was it a clerk, a junior, office rent, or whatever?
Office rent, thanks to Devashish, I have never paid. I don't intend to, at least for a few years. And I think the first investments, which should be, in my opinion, good commentaries. Those are important. And the thing which I find with juniors and interns these days is they don't want to read commentaries. They would straight away want to go to Manupatra and look up for the subject, put those search terms, and half the time the search terms are wrong. Because if you are so good that you know you can frame the research question well, Those are very few exceptions, at least I have not come across. If you go through the commentary, you will learn a lot more, because you may not require something today, which you may end up reading in a commentary, which is going to become useful tomorrow or day after. So, investing in good commentary books is very important, followed by the research softwares. And once you have sufficient number of matters, then I think having a good clerk is very useful and is a worthy investment. Because if you have, at least in the initial years of practice, maybe 4 or 5 matters a month, I think the cost benefit analysis will be more in favor of not having a full time clerk, because that is an expensive option to have. And there are freelancers available. You can always utilize their services.
एक नेटवर्क का होना, नेटवर्क ऑफ लॉयर्स का होना कितना जरूरी है while growing your practice?
This is important. I will not undermine the importance of being in a good network, but I think this is not the most important thing. So, according to me, going to the National Law University helped me more in having good batchmates rather than somebody teaching me all the subjects. Because most of what was taught in college was, I don't think more than 10-15% was put in practice, because the teaching is different from practicing something practically in court. But the friendship that you develop, the group that you develop, and it is unfair to call it a network, because you have grown up with those people for 5 years, is helpful. Because somebody is in some place, they may, and after maybe 15-20 years of practice, some people have domain expertise. So if you know people, you can look up to them for advisory, you can look up to them to engage them. And in starting years of practice, there is a feeling, मैं ही सब कुछ कर लूँगा, मैं चंडीगढ़ भी पहुँच जाऊँगा, मैं फाइलिंग भी कर दूँगा, मैं बॉम्बे भी पहुँच जाऊँगा, डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट भी कर लूँगा.
But you've done it.
I've done it, and it should be done, because that is how you learn. So when I filed my first matter in Supreme Court, that was related to demonetization. And through Devashish, I met Miss Manisha Ambani, and she was very kind enough. The first matter hai beta, karo. File kar diya, and I didn't have a clerk. So I realized first day I missed filing. Because that time there used to be token system, there was no e-filing. So you had to stand in a queue, file your matter. फिर वो पीछे एक रैक पे रखा होता था, pick it up in the evening after defects are marked, and the next day you had to refile it. Refiling was a pain, because clerks would queue up at 9 o'clock in the morning to take their tokens and refile the matters. So one day I requested my mother to accompany me when I was refiling that writ, and I think I stood in line at 8:45 a.m.
I see.
I was number 3. There were 2 guys before me. And since there were 5 counters, so I was amongst the first person to be on the counter. And the saving grace was that a similar matter, I obtained a copy of the writ of an identical matter. So since it was a matter which was free of defects, it was refiled and listed in court, I knew how to put in the listing per forma. One thing I missed out, because in that case the petitioner was from Delhi in the affidavit. My client was from Faridabad, my father's college roommate's wife. She had some demonetized notes. In the affidavit, it was her address in Faridabad. I did not write presently at New Delhi. So that was the only defect which was marked. So the dealing assistant looked at me, said, Faridabad जाओगे इसको sign कराने? I said, हाँ जी, ये लिख दो. और चारों में लिखना, because I think 4 or 5 copies used to be filed. So चारों में लिख के refile कर दिया.
And today you mentioned before we started recording that you're doing a lot of property related matters.
Yes.
थोड़ा उसके बारे में बताएं.
So outside Delhi, because Delhi has a very diverse area of practice, you have all the tribunals in Delhi, and you have multiple forums like NCLT, NCLAT, NCDRC, TDSAT, APTEL, all these tribunals are not available outside Delhi. And since I was based in Faridabad, so there they follow the traditional practice method. So you get one client who has supposedly come to you for a check bounce. Once you file that check bounce case and they're happy with you, they'll possibly also come to you with some pending partition matter in their house. You do that. Then they'll also come to you with some matrimonial matter. Then you do that. Then they'll come to you with some reference. Who will come to you with the second appeal in Chandigarh High Court? Because the suit and the first appeal are in Faridabad. The second appeal goes to the Punjab and Haryana High Court. So this is how the practice gets established. It takes a while. And sometimes the remuneration, it has happened with me as late as 4 months back. I did a civil suit, got the suit decreed, no stay in the first appeal. So in the evening, the original plaintiffs came with a katta full of vegetables. कि सर ये हमारे खेत की है, खाओ. So it had गाजर, शलगम, पालक, नींबू, बैंगन.
अब फीस क्यों चाहिए?
हाँ, तो बस अब वो हो गया. And if you are expecting a fee, then you are in the wrong place.
Correct.
With wrong expectation.
ये हमारा प्यार है.
And sometimes they don't pay you directly, but they'll get you a reference. And they'll say, sir, वो हो गया, आपको दिया था.
तो आप चंडीगढ़ जाते रहते?
Yes, after my mother got ill last year, I reduced the frequency. But otherwise, I used to be there once in every 2 weeks. Sometimes even more frequently.
So your therefore main practice forums are Delhi High Court and Chandigarh High Court.
Yes, and after becoming AOR Supreme Court, and the qualification in the AOR exam, it gives you it puts your image differently in the minds of the clients. You are the same person. Your knowledge is the same. Nothing changes in you apart from the fact that, and I was lucky that I got a full year break because of COVID. I was supposed to write the exam in 2020 June. And the court shut down in March, I think 15th or 18th March 2020. And we did not know when the exam is going to be held. We were expecting 2-3 हफ्ते में खुलेगा, exam देना पड़ेगा. So I went, started studying. June से it got postponed to December. पढ़ते रहे. फिर वो postponed हो गया अगले June 21. तब भी नहीं हुआ. Finally, I think it happened in December 21, where 2 batches wrote the exams together. Post that exam, I found the way I am perceived by clients has changed. They think you are more intelligent. They think your knowledge of law is better than the people who have not qualified this exam. So, and honestly, you are the same person. Nothing changes in you, just that you can charge a bit higher. And sometimes people offer to pay you higher. So I realize sometimes it is better to keep your mouth shut while asking for fee than saying something and lower their expectation that, अरे ये तो 85,000 बन जाता है. So there have been instances where I just said, sir, आप देख लो, जैसा आपको ठीक लगे. And it has turned out to be better for me.
And इस समय जैसे आपकी experience के लोग, I don't want to know exactly your fee, but approximately, as you have grown from a 0 PQE to a 10-11 year PQE, what kind of fee range have you gone through and seen your peers also charge and other people charge?
I've seen extremes in past 1.5 years after becoming an AOR. So even today, there are matters where you are told by some senior colleague, not necessarily a senior advocate, but they are otherwise very senior to you, अरे यार तू इसको कर दे, पैसे आ जाएंगे, कोई बात. And I've seen one thing that has worked, especially for me, जिस मैटर में पैसे मिलते हैं उसमें रिलीफ नहीं मिलता और जिसमें रिलीफ मिलता है उसमें पैसे नहीं मिलते.
It's fantastic.
So I'm doing I'm representing some directors in prosecution launched by SFIO against a company in Florida. Huge scam. Actually a scam. I may be representing a party, but most of them are at fault. So I filed the first SLP in Supreme Court arising out of that bunch of 80 people. and had that regular bail been allowed, I was anti, and people were waiting कि ये regular bail आप इसकी करा दो, हम आपको 50 anticipatory bail और देंगे directors की, overriding elsewhere, evading summons. That bail got dismissed. So those prospective 60 clients just went away. So it happens sometimes, and all of them were, because client ना डर में ही पैसे देता, nobody pays out of love for you. So it is only when they are pushed to corner and they are aware कि भैया आप तो गए, बस हमारे और जेल के बीच में एक ये एवार साहब ही खड़े हुए हैं, तभी पैसे देते हैं. तो that is a major chunk which I lost out. But it happened the other way around also. I was doing a batch land acquisition matters from Faridabad district, where initially I was representing a relative. So there was no expectation of a fee. They were blood relatives. Their land was acquired in 2008 for construction of a road, a major arterial road in Faridabad. I initially appeared for 5. So then they had a panchayat for all those 17, 18 villages. But तेरा वकील कौन है? तुम्हारा वकील कौन है? Then some went with the suggestion which came from their lawyer in High Court कि मैं आपको कराऊंगा Supreme Court में, because all outside Delhi, most High Courts have tie-ups. So if you come from Chandigarh High Court, your counsel there will have a tie-up with some AOR and some senior and some arguing counsel in Supreme Court. And they'll ensure that this chain is kept sacrosanct and there is no intruding in this chain. Nobody is able to entice your client away from you. What he said, यार ये तो हमारा भतीजा है, हम तो इसको ही देंगे. From 5, I expanded to, I think, eventually 95 people. And the 90 paid also. So sometimes it works to your advantage, and because the court was inclined to enhance compensation, so therefore there were less chances of you losing, going bust like I went in SFI. So that is one matter where not much work, hard work, and doing the same thing, same argument, and you earn much more than what you were expected to earn in the start.
And what is, so just to come back, generally the ranges of fee that lawyers
range
charge?
Of fee,
So for instance, do you charge lump sum or do you charge broker?
No, it also varies from client to client. I've had people whom I wanted to charge in lump sum so that there is no chick-chick-baji after every hearing. But they said, nahi, hum per appearance denge.
Achha.
And it worked in my favor eventually. So most incorporated entities would prefer per hearing.
Why is
because, matters drag on for a long time, especially in High Court and trial courts. And a lump sum fee spooks their directors, the decision makers. So it is easier for legal department to go and tell them कि सर देखो 15,000 20,000 रुपये पेशी पे तय हो गया, साल में 3-4 लगेंगी, 50,000-60,000 रुपये साल में चल जाएगा. But if you tell them a lump sum fee of say 3 lakhs or 4 lakhs or 5 lakhs, it raises too many red flags. Because then everybody has their own suggestions. यार ये महंगा है, इसको कर लेते हैं, ये 2 में करने को तैयार. So to overcome that, with time you realize that per appearance is a better way to work. And also it is fairer to the client and to your disadvantage, because after notice matters don't reach, especially in High Court, Delhi High Court, Chandigarh High Court. So if it is a per appearance and your matter doesn't reach, you can't charge, but you are there the entire day. So it is good for the client, but it is not too good for you. And I think this is where VC is helpful.
Right. That's right.
You can have devices and log into 3-4 courts. Jahan number aaye kar lo. Just save your time.
So on that point of VC, आपका COVID कैसा था? In terms of how much work did you get? Did it dry up?
Actually, I picked up practice in COVID.
I see.
2020 July, when courts were partially reopening, is when my practice picked up.
I see.
And which is when I got these land acquisition matters, which is when I got this SFIO matter. This was, I think, in the middle of second wave, the deadly one, in April 2021, which is when I got the SFIO matter. COVID was the time when people started venturing from their traditional channels to unknown advocates for matters, because there were times when their known channels were not available. Possibly they were too comfortable and they were not wanting to go to court, because VC as a system is successful mostly in Delhi. Outside Delhi, people are not a big fan of VC. Apart from producing accused from the jail, VC is not found much favor there. Faridabad, Gurgaon, for that matter, even Chandigarh High Court, they are not big fans of VC. So they will keep you locked out till your item is called out. And the moment your item is called out, by the time you switch on, most of the times the matter is adjourned. So you don't figure out what has happened. So VC was one time when I was fully available. COVID was one time when I was fully available. कोर्ट जाना है मैं जाऊंगा. कोविड से मुझे कोई डर नहीं लगता. And which is when I got quite a few matters in Faridabad. Then from Faridabad, because only urgent matters were being taken up by district courts. So there were few matters getting filed in Chandigarh. Those matters were being taken up because few matters were listed. So the churning rate of matters being decided increased. And one advantage with VC which I found was that if your client is able to log in from VC or he's sitting with you, he knows what you're doing, which is not happening in most matters when they are being done physically. So this is one advantage of VC that clients can see, because order sheets don't always reflect what has happened in court. Sometimes after 1 hour or 45 minutes of heated argument, all it says is re-notify on, which is a big disappointment.
Correct.
You have done your bit of hard work and all you get is re-notify.
So far as the areas of land acquisition and other property matters are concerned, what are the ways in which you think people can get into these fields today? एक तो मुझे नहीं पता कि आजकल जो लॉ स्कूल से ग्रेजुएट हो रहे हैं लोग, I don't think they find many traditional areas of practice as very lucrative. उनको शायद ये impression है कि lucrative वाले fields जो होते हैं वो हैं arbitration, IP, बस.
Even arbitration and IP, nobody is going to come to you and say कि ये मेरा arbitration कर दो. You have to have your name in the market for somebody to come to you and give your arbitration matter to you.
Right.
So to think that one field is, I find matrimonial matters to be most lucrative, if that is the only criteria. These matters can be exhaustive. Clients can really unnerve you at times. And since these are personal matters, all gloves are off and everything is on the table. You name a trick and the client is ready for it. And money is also, because this is personal. And जब पर्सनल हो जाता है तो पैसे का कोई उनको वो नहीं रहता. अगर मेरी जेब में 100 रुपए हैं, मैं 20 उधार लेके भी लगाने को तैयार हूँ, इसकी अकल ठीक करो. So if money is the only criteria, I think matrimonial is also not a bad field. But I think it is not advisable to pick your field at the inception unless you are really, really sure.
Why?
Because you don't know what kind of work you will get moving ahead. So as recently as 2 months back, I got a matter related to land acquisition, regarding which I had never worked on earlier. It relates to section 28A of the Land Acquisition Act of 1894. And that is a unique section because it rewards the party who does not pursue litigation, to ensure that everybody whose land has been acquired under the same notification is granted the same compensation. It is a socially beneficial legislation, but that is one area I never explored, despite being into land acquisition for close to 7 years. Enhancement, everybody has done it, who has done land acquisition. States challenge to enhancement, most have done it. But despite doing land acquisition, most people don't know how land acquisition actually works. And this is one thing I realized, most judges even are ill-equipped to decide land acquisition matters because possibly their land has not been acquired. They don't know how it feels when your land is acquired and you become landless overnight. So it is one perception that आपको 1.5 करोड़ रुपया एकड़ मिल गया, आपकी लाइफ सेट हो गई. See, but if you get money in hand and your land is taken away, if you spend that money, you are left with nothing. You have no land, you have no money. If you keep that money, then you are nowhere because you can't spend the money and your land is gone. Then what do you do? So therefore, land acquisition is a very I think an important area where the courts should have great focus as to how do you arrive at the uh, correct market value of the land. There have been swings right up to Supreme Court. There would be a string of judgments saying we should be benevolent while granting compensation for land acquisition. But when they deal with cosmopolitan cities where the cost of land is extremely high, they think it is a lottery. And therefore, we should lower the compensation which is being granted because free के पैसे मिल रहे हैं सबको. ये तो आपने कुछ किया तो है नहीं, ये तो पुश्तैनी जमीन है और अब आप करोड़पति बन गए. So I think both thoughts require some reconciliation, and people should be adequately compensated. Under the new act, the provision where they say you can settle the matter at the inception by taking 4 times the circle rate. It is a welcome step, but there is still a lot of litigation pending in courts, and these are mass litigations where you have a bunch of 800 RFAs, 900 RFAs, 500 RFAs, correspondingly 500 SLPs being decided in one go. I'm doing one matter where DDA has filed, I think, close to 600 SLPs. All separate. They did not do it in one go. All separate paper books, 600 SLPs pending, and bench presided over by Justice Suryakant. Since he comes from Punjab and Haryana High Court, he has dealt with those matters. So he has also devised a plan that this is how I intend to proceed, date-wise, notification-wise, so that you can segregate matters, bunch them up, and decide them together. And he has listed every SLP so that you get whatever 1 minute or 30 seconds to put across your point as to why my case is different from the judgment where this notification has been dealt with. It is taking a lot of time. So this matter is before a 3-judge bench. They sit at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays, whenever the combination is available. I think out of 500-600, they've been able to decide 150 cases. And it is still ongoing. Matters are now in April.
But that's also quite good if 150 cases are.
It is better to go matter-wise, make up a chart and decide one notification so that 50, 60, 70, whatever is the number of RFAs or SLPs arising out of same notification can be dealt with.
And do you think it is true that somebody who's located outside Delhi, even if close by, like in Faridabad or Gurgaon, are more likely to land up with these property matters, and the number of these matters are fewer in Delhi, for example?
Yes, because two neighboring states of Delhi, Haryana and UP, Noida and Gurgaon, Faridabad, Sonipat, there the cost of land may have gone up, but the mindset is still the same. I have observed the change in Gurgaon District Court now. They have evolved better compared to Faridabad, Noida, Sonipat in terms of areas of practice. Like Faridabad and Noida, they are still more into hardcore civil, hardcore criminal, and matrimonial. These are the 3 broad silos. But in Gurgaon, they have evolved a lot, and it is when such matters come up in court, the judges also evolve when they decide these cases. I have had instances in Faridabad where the application for closing the right to file WS after completion of 120 days remained pending for 2 years. Because it was difficult for the judge to comprehend. मैंने तो सारी उम्र डिले कंडोन करी है, ये कैसे हो सकता है? Because there is a designated ADJ to deal with commercial matters. He reads the statute, he understands it, he reads the judgment which says beyond 120 days no WS, but he doesn't want to decide because for him it is a departure from Order 8 Rule 1. where you are permitted to file whenever you want to, provided you can explain the delay. And since high courts have been liberal while interpreting Order 8, they permit WS to be taken on record unless there is some real lack of reasoning. If you apply the same thing to commercial courts, it will not work, because commercial courts are meant to cater to the evolving requirements of society. So, with these matters, I think the judges of these cities also have to upgrade. And since there is a transfer cycle of 3 years, by the time they understand, they're out. And they're back into the interiors of the state where these things are not very common.
No, it's quite understandable. And you mentioned in the beginning of the interview that there was an advice given to you by a Supreme Court judge that go and start in a trial court.
Yes. I fully endorse it today and I stand by it. And I think at least 3 to 5 years is the ideal time, and it is no disgrace to practice in district court. I have seen district court lawyers who are doing much better financially, much better in terms of work satisfaction, much better in terms of work-life balance in district courts compared to people who are running to High Court or Supreme Court with a hope that someday we'll earn much more and we'll become whoever they want to become.
And can you explain this a little more? How is it that a district court lawyer, what is different about district court practice that may enable a lawyer?
District court practice works more on volume. The fee structures are different. It is unimaginable in a district court, with an exception of Gurgaon. You tell somebody I charge 2 lakh rupees for an entire civil suit, you will be called a nutcase. But since you will have over 50, 60 hearings and you ask for 3,000 rupees on each hearing, and people will happily pay. So the stress levels are different. The expectations of both client and advocates are different. And I think the advantage of practicing in district court is that you get more time to address the judge. You have since you are in a trial court, you have everything available to you. This is the first court on facts. Unless you have mastered your facts, citing fancy judgments will not help you. Because either you show that my facts are identical to the facts in the judgment that you're citing. Even for that, you'll have to know your facts. And if you don't know your facts, then you'll be a disaster everywhere. So I think the advantage of working in district court is that, one, the bandwidth of matters is more, the leverage to experiment is more, and the time to address the court is more. Nobody in High Court in the usual course is going to permit you more than 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Unless there is some matter where some senior counsel is appearing, different story. But nobody is giving you that much indulgence. But in district court, since the rate of decision is slower and they have a long list of matters listed every day. So in the same day, you have a good possibility that you will see a matter where a witness is being cross-examined. In the same desk, you will see a matter of 10 minutes where charges are being framed. At the same podium, after another 15-20 minutes, you will see a criminal appeal being argued. And you will see another matter in the same day where an order on sentencing is being passed. So that bandwidth is not available in the constitutional courts. Unless in very, very rare cases where I was observing one matter in Justice Vikram Nath's court where he overturned concurrent acquittals in Supreme Court, convicting an MLA for the murder of a district collector in some elections which took place in 1989 or 1990. There they had to call the accused to court because he was being convicted for the first time. And therefore the order on sentencing had to be pronounced and the arguments on sentencing had to be advanced. And since it was a case of 302, the only option was either life sentence or death. So they gave life sentence and there was no requirement of argue.
Just to sort of now wind up, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, are there any mistakes that either you look back on as something that you did in your early years, or you've seen other people do, which are common to the profession, and you would sort of advise, you'd flag them and advise other people to avoid them?
The first one is the hesitation of going to district courts. That I think is a major issue. But the other aspect of that is with the advent of tribunals, the concept of trial has gone away. In tribunals, all you file your petition, reply, rejoinder, and hearing, final hearing. There is no evidence, there is no CPC, there is nothing which is required to be done. So, if you are into that area of litigation and you wish to remain there, then possibly there is no requirement of looking into this route. But if you are well versed with the provisions of CPC and CRPC, they will help you even while arguing or drafting before a tribunal. Because end of the day, CPC evidence and CRPC are nothing but common sense. And they are just enlisting a procedure as to what happens after what. So if you are aware of that, it is certainly going to help you. People say CPC doesn't apply to arbitration and procedure is handmaiden of justice. But the judge you are addressing is either a former High Court judge or a Supreme Court judge or a district judge. And they throughout their life have done CPC. So if you are able to put across your point, and final hearing is just 20% of the aspect. To reach the stage of final hearing, you are required to pass through multiple stages. And those multiple stages are nothing but CPC and evidence. So if you have done that, and for good number of days or years, it is very helpful. The second issue which I wish to point out is people don't want to read. And by reading, I mean the latest developments in law and also the past judgments of constitution benches of which are otherwise of great importance to the evolution of law. Because the judgments, although they are meant to address a particular point, but while discussing that or deciding that point, they look at too many aspects. And the judgments which are cited within a judgment are also great pointers, because if you can't follow the method of saying, today I will sit at 9 o'clock and I will dig out 200 judgments and I will read them. It is not workable. The better idea is you take up one judgment and you also, as a follow-up read, go through judgments which are cited in there, so that one, it maintains a flow, and two, that topic you have completely covered. And once you have covered a topic, it is very important to make your register or notes or whatever. With Justice Chauhan, I have seen he still retains a register on which I have my eyes on. That a register which he started maintaining in the year 1980 or 81. It is a thick register, and even today, when he reads something, if he thinks it is important or can be useful, he makes a note of that judgment along with citation and para number in his register. So at any point in time, sometimes I call him up, uncle, मैं फंस गया इधर कुछ करिए. So then he said, अच्छा रुकिए आपको करते हैं 10 मिनट में. He go back to his office at his residence, open the register, and he has a very good memory. So he'll know where to find it.
Where to find it. Excellent.
So that is very important. It is important. ये आगे दौड़ और पीछे छोड़ वाला thing will not help in the long run. You have to intake, digest, assimilate, process the information that you are gaining today so that it becomes useful tomorrow. It should not be that I have done one matter, file thrown, deleted from memory, and then ab agla matter karenge. Right. This stops your evolution as a lawyer and also as a human being. Your past experiences shape your future actions.
And on networking, I know you mentioned that it's not fair to call your friends a network. But other than friends, आपको क्या लगता है networking का क्या role है इस profession में? And specifically on networking, I think आजकल LinkedIn and other social media.
For a few friends, I don't think it is fair to name them. LinkedIn has worked very well. They have put out whatever information about them which they found was amplified it by multiple times, and it has got them very good harvest or results or whatever you call it. So different things works for different individual, but if somebody can, if you are active, I think social media is a very good platform to gain clientage. There is no two thoughts about it.
What do you think about the permissibility of it? I don't know if you saw a leading law firm ने अभी recently एक advertisement ही बना दिया with an actor in it. I don't know if you saw it. Or...
I've not seen it, but I think we are way past the Advocates Act of 1961. If they want to do it, they want to do it, but I would still say for 99% of the clients, these things are immaterial. It is more about how much trust they have in their counsel. And given the levels of legal literacy in our country, somebody may be financially very well off, but in terms of legal literacy, unfortunately, they have no knowledge. और वकील साहब ने अगर कहा है तो ये ठीक ही होगा, और जो वकील साहब करेंगे हमारे फेवर में ही करेंगे, और अगर कुछ नहीं रिजल्ट निकला, most want to have the advice of their counsel in trial court while going to appeal, which is the reason why this network chain, the counsel in trial court will tell you whom to approach in high court, who will in turn tell you whom to approach in Supreme Court, is surviving. Because there is a degree of trust. For lawyers, it may be a financial angle, that when you make a reference, you may get something in return. But for the client, it is more about faith. कि इसने मेरा ट्रायल कोर्ट में किया था, ये मेरे ब्रीफ को ज़्यादा अच्छे से जानता है, maybe he'll put me in safer hands in the appellate court.
And आपको लगता है कि ये हमेशा ज़्यादा मैटर करता है than shaking somebody's hand at a party?
Yes, that may get you one reference, but if you mess it up, I think that handshake is good for nothing.
So that's it from me. Thank you so much, Dhruv. Thank you, everybody, if you're still with us. And do like, share, comment, subscribe. And do let us know if there are other questions that you would want us to ask our guests in future. And we'd love to take that up. Thank you, Dhruv.
Thank you so much for having me.